Hey, welcome to Taylor's Trick Taking Table. I'm Taylor, and I know it's just in June, and I'm so sorry for highlighting all these new Tokyo Game Market games that are hard to get. Good news is, next week, everyone will be able to get the games we're covering. Whew! So a little preview. This week, again, we are covering a Tokyo Game Market release, Nightmare Millionaire. It's by Kenichi Kabuki with the wonderful Sai Beppu doing the art. And the hook to this is it's a climbing shitting game where all the cards kind of have a use, and there's a few different powers, a few different meld types, and it's a little bit like Hachi Train or Nanatori Dori, which we covered in the past. But again, if you read titles, and I saw the thumbnail, we have a different game as well. This is a re-implementation of Roll Right Daifugu, which we covered previously on the channel. It's by Chika Suzu, and this is the new edition by Korea Board Games. They sent me this, so kind. So this was just in to my house, so I count it. I count the just in June. And so we'll be covering this as well. This, if you haven't seen that video, definitely check it out because I don't do the full teach on this. But this is essentially a roll and write climbing shedding game. Woo! Where you'll be rolling dice to have numbers that you'll write on a board, and then those will add up to your cards in your hand, and then you'll play a climbing shedding game with the cards. Absolutely wild. But before we go to the table, I wanted to finally get to the giveaway that we did for Hachi Train. The Hachi Train giveaway was asking what your favorite superhero was, and I got 50 responses. And before I got the response, I asked Ty from Tricky Imports, because it was him who was giving away the Hachi Train copy. So nice of Ty. Was, what is your favorite superhero? And he said, he gave me two. He said Doctor Strange and Star-Lord. And what I was hoping to do was to find someone who said that, or one of those, and give it away. And in all 50 of the responses, no one said those, either of those superheroes. So what I decided to do was I tried to get as close as one of the two as I could find, and there was a lot of Spider-Man. Spider-Man was the #1 superhero by far, but I think closer than Spider-Man, because Spider-Man's, you know, pretty close to Doctor Strange. I would say Rocket Raccoon. There was a Rocket Raccoon entry from Blue Lightning. So Blue Lightning, reach out to me. There's a link tree down in the description. You can email me or message me, and I'll send you over a copy of Hachi Train. I do want to say shout outs. I compiled the list here of the different superheroes that people put. Extremely creative. Everyone knocked it out of the park. My favorite, if I could have picked, was to someone who said my favorite superhero was Potato Man. That's such a great bit. Oh, wonderful. Anyway, thanks so much, everyone. Things are going to be wild here. So in a few videos, we're also going to have a 1955 giveaway. So that's going to be exciting. So keep your eyes and ears peeled. But for now, we're going to go to the table, and I'm going to teach you how to play these games. The deck in Nightmare Millionaire is 3 suits, numbered 1 through 6, but they're doubled up, so each number is in the game twice. There's also 2 pluses and 3 pluses, which I'll explain in a little bit. Also, there's a wild suit, which counts for any of the suits, but there's only 1 each of those. Here we have the game set up for 3 players, so you're going to shuffle the deck, deal 6 here, that's a draw deck, which I'll explain in a little bit. You're going to have these eye candy cards, those are the scoring, which we'll pull back in at the end, and then each player is going to get dealt a certain number of cards. At 3, it's going to be 12, so the rest of the deck. Nightmare Millionaire is a climbing shedding game, so the goal of the game is to get rid of your cards as fast as possible. The start player, let's just say it's Haunter, they, in the start of a hand, always can only play a single card. They can play any one of these. If it's a 3+, it's just a 3 for this purpose. Any of these symbols we'll explain later. These are wilds, they can definitely play that, but let's for now just say they play the 5 yellow. So in this first trick, since it is a climbing game, the next players have to play higher, and you don't have to match the suit, so this player up here could play a 6. As you can see, it is higher. Coming to the cat now, they are a little nervous because, again, 6s are one of the highest in the deck, but as you can see, the pluses on the cards are very interesting. So if you have a plus that matches the suit of another card, you can add it combining the numbers into a new number. So as you can see, this is now an 8. So the cat is now winning. Coming back to Haunter, they can, if they want, they'll add to that too, so they can play a 9. Important to note, when you lead a single at the very start of the hand, you can't add pluses. You just have to play a single card. But as we can keep going here, this is going to go around and around and around until players pass. So let's say the ace person passes. If you pass and there are cards in the draw deck, you will draw one. So coming to the cat here, maybe they pass and they take a card as well. So if everyone passes, this gets all discarded and the player who played the highest, so Haunter in this case, would then lead to the next trick. Let's do another trick of singles just to show another mechanic in the game. Maybe Haunter plays, now that they can, they're going to play a 6 because it's the 3 and the 3. What's interesting about the game is the ones will have stops on them, meaning if in the current trick a 6 was played, you can play this to immediately stop the trick. So this will wipe it and it'll count as this player will win. These players don't have to draw at all because it doesn't count as them passing. It just immediately stops the trick and then that player up there wins it. So then this skeleton hand will then lead to the next trick. So what else can you play in the game? Well, you can play sets, so the same number. So maybe, 2 4s, or, if they had it, they can play like 3 4s. And then the next players would just have to beat that, right? So this player over here would have to play like 3 5s. So what's interesting about the game also is you can use the pluses to help in your melds. So as you can see here, it's like a 5 5 and then 2 plus 3 5. So that is also valid. Wilds can also be used for their number or whatever they want. They're just, again, like a normal 6 in this example here. Important to note, since a 6 was played, now the stop symbol can immediately stop a trick. So if this player, which they do, has 3 1s, if they play that there, that is also going to immediately stop the trick. The last thing you can play are suited runs 3 or higher. So looking at this person's hand, they have a 1, a 2, and so they could actually use their wild 2 or their red 2. They're going to use their red 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they're going to do that. Again, what beats it is the same length, so a 5-card run, but higher, so like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just for an example, you can use pluses in runs as well. So this is actually a 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, stops still matter in this case. So since a 6 was used, now any 4-length run that has a 1 in it can block this, like a 1, 2, 3, 4. So a play like this would go around the table until someone is out of cards. Once that happens, you look at the hands, and if there is, the draw deck, and you're going to see how many wild cards are left remaining in it. So none in the draw deck. Over here, this player doesn't have any. So depending on them, the player who shed out first is going to get a certain number of points. And this is going to get tracked by the eyeball cards. So if it's 0, 1, or 2, the player who got out first, let's say it's this player up here, will get 1 point. If it's 3 or 4, then the player is going to get 2 eyeball points. So if that happened, they just flip it like that. And then if it's 5 or 6, then that player gets 3, and that's an immediate victory because it's first to 3 eyeball candy points. And that's how to play Nightmare Millionaire. The deck and Nirvana are kind of these dice numbered 1 to 6. So I'm just going to show off what the difference is between Nirvana and Roll Right Die Fugu. If you don't know how to play Roll Right Die Fugu, go check out the video. This is very, very, very similar. In fact, these cards are really the only main difference. These dice are super nice. The pencils are good. This is amazing because often when I would play Roll Right Die Fugu, I just do this or use different game boxes to cover it up. So each player has a player kind of covering shield. And then also this is a really nice sheet that has very colorblind friendly, very nice faded arrows, and very clear iconography of how to draw and build your cards on here. So let's talk mainly about the cards. So to set up, you're going to shuffle these together and draw 3 of them. So let's do these for now. So as you can see, there are 2 different symbols on the top of the insight cards. There is a die and then a card. Those just show you which of the 2 phases these get activated in. And they're just different powers. So like, let's check some out. So this one says 9 cards can be counted as 10s, which is super useful for making kind of huge sets. This one's like at the end of the dice phase, if a player puts the same number into 5 adjacent spaces, they can cross out up to 3 cards of their choice. So that's cool. I mean, it's a shedding game. You really want to do that. And then this one here, it says if 8 cards are played, all other players must pass. So that's kind of funny. It's kind of like original Millionaire rules. So there's just a bunch of them. I might just take a picture and put it on screen right now so you can pause the video and read them, but there are a good amount to always have a bunch of variety now put into the game of, Roll Right to Fuka, or Nirvana in this case. So that is Nirvana and Nightmare Millionaire. Let's talk about Nirvana first. So a lovely production by Game Noan and Sai Beppu and Kabuki, where the theme, first and foremost, is super cute. I love that, again, I've said this before on the channel, like numbers and suits don't necessarily need to have a theme, but if you go for it and do it in a fun manner, I think it can pay dividends. Like, I love explaining the theme to these characters where they want these eyeballs, which are the points, and all of them, they look gorgeous, just obviously because Sai did the art, but also in the rulebook there's blurbs of why they want eyeballs. So I think it's charming in and of itself, kind of similar to Nana or 535, which Sai does. Just these wonderful, extremely cute and whimsical looking characters. And the gameplay itself, though, is interesting. It reminds me a lot of, we talked about Hachi Train or Nana Toridori, those games where you're trying to shut out, but if you pass, you draw a card, or Scout, where you care so much about passing because then it adds a card to your hand, and that is sometimes very nice, sometimes not that great, like if you fail to go out and the card you have to draw is no good for you. The interesting thing about this game specifically is it almost feels like a design goal of it was that like every card could be used. Like almost bad cards have different uses and every hand can have different possibilities, like the fact that the wilds is super good. The low cards, like the 1s, 2s, and 3s, either have additions on it, like the 2s and the 3s, or the 1s are able to stop. Those remind me of, if you've played 535, the 8s in the game, that if you play them when it's kind of in the middle of the trick, it kind of stops the trick right away. I don't know if that is a Millionaire thing, an aspect of Millionaire. Millionaire is a type of climbing shedding game that a lot of these games are based off of, I think, not 100% sure. But it does feel like every card has a use. Anyway, I feel like the goal of this game was to make it so most of the cards are just super, super useful. And the double deck 1 through 6 means that I think the ratio of runs compared to sets is pretty good, especially with those wilds helping out. I just think there's a good amount of overall flexibility. The only con I think I found is it's an interesting scoring, but I don't know if I love it. So the scoring is where the wilds, depending on how many are out, is how well a person does. And that almost feels a little bit random. Like I think someone could do just as well per round, and either there's wilds in the draw deck, or someone just couldn't play their wilds in time. It feels like sometimes you'll do just as well and you won't get as many points. Of course, it's a super quick, light game, so I don't know how much strategy there really is. But oftentimes in this game, it'll be like someone will shut out and they'll get a point, and they'll shut out again and get a point. And then someone else will just shut out and get 3 points, and then they'll win right away. So it's a weird game where it is super quick and light. Maybe the scoring just feels like it's giving agency, but it doesn't really in a weird way. Like, there's oftentimes in the game, I'll have those wilds, and I'll think to myself, I gotta play them, because if I don't go out, they're just gonna add to the points to the person who does go out. And I'll want to play them, and sometimes it just doesn't work out. Or sometimes, because they do add flexibility, I think they're super strong, but then they just don't work with my hand. So it does feel like everything's there in the game, like there's some good flexibility, it's a light, kind of Hachi level climbing shedding game, but the scoring itself just feels like, you might randomly get 1 point, randomly get 2 points, you randomly might just win. So, interesting game. I really like it. I think there's some really cool design decisions to make it to where a ton of the cards are useful. I almost wish that all of the 2s and 3s had pluses on them, because all the 1s have the stop, and then the 4s, 5s, and 6s are just, high. I kind of love the adding. I designed a game called Zip Zap Zop, which has cards adding to themselves, and I love that idea of using cards in different ways, like multi-use cards. So the gameplay itself, really slick. I just do feel like when it comes to the scoring, it's just like, I might get some points, I might not. And the game is sometimes a little too quick. Like you'll play like one hand or two hands usually. So maybe those are the only rough edges for me, is like a little bit of the scoring, a little bit of the game pacing feels a little bit short. But again, it's a light game. So overall, pretty slick. I definitely would say check this out, especially if you like Scout 535, Hachi Train Nana Toridori. I think this is in the similar weight class. Offers some cool twists, if subtle twists, to the genre. And Nirvana. I've already gushed how much I really enjoy Roll Right Daifugu, and this is just an amazing production of it. So it definitely gets to see, like, just flat out, I think this is a wonderful production, and the fact that the dice are wooden is nice, and you have player boards now, so you don't have to use your hands or just like the game boxes like we would use. But probably the main difference between the Roll Right Daifugu video and this one with Nirvana is these cards, and I will say a lot of these cards are really slick. Some of them, personally, are a little bit dud-ish, like you'll see them and be like, is that going to happen? And then it won't happen. Or you'll try to use it and you'll be like, I don't think that was worth it, at the end. And maybe sometimes they're good in, certain games where the dice roll a different way. But some of these are really, really slick. I like how some of these like this, where it's like if 8 cards are played, everyone must pass. It's almost like we just talked about with Millionaire and the 8s in 535, or the 1s in Nightmare Millionaire. The kind of idea of certain cards can just stop the gameplay and let you win right away. That's really powerful, I feel like, in Nirvana or Roll Right Daifugu. And just some other really cool ones where you're like announcing when you do certain things. I think all these cards add really cool twists, especially because there are so many. I think the game itself of Roll Right, I thought it was always fun and interesting. There's kind of 2 routes that it got for me, because I played it a good amount, where a meta would evolve and players would either try to build real big sets or real big numbers, and you can still play that game a bunch because you do get that meta, especially within groups. But I have found that sometimes the game would, fall a little flat. So these cards themselves add tons of variety, so much spice, and I love what they add to the game. So yeah, that is Nirvana. Definitely recommend, and Nightmare Millionaire. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch y'all later.